Ashley Buckle. We're live from the Builders National Labor Summit here in Omaha, Nebraska. And there's Charles. Charles is on with us live. Charles, can you hear me okay? Charles, your voice may need you may need to change your sound. Real quick, just want to let you know we're going to be at the Framer Summit the next 2 days, the BCMC show. But I can hear you now, Charles.
Melissa said something to me about it. All right, can you hear me?
A little technical difficulty there.
You know
I can hear you.
You know how well Tech and I get along, Ash.
Let me turn it up a little bit. I couldn't hear you real well.
I said, you know how well Tech and I get along.
I don't know, man. The way I saw you with that Bobcat or your front end loader vertical that one day, that's a guy that can do that can run any tech.
Yeah, well, that's physical. That's not technology.
So we're at the Framer Summit today. If you can see this.
Yeah.
Pretty good conversation. You know, one of the main topics is lumber volatility, right? And some other talking points. A lot of the framers are here. Good information. So we got a couple more speakers. Going to be a good panel discussion later this afternoon. Navigating a disrupted material supply chain with Matt Lehman, John Brandstetter, Stinson Dean, James Zerger, and Tom Velva.
Yeah. No, it's great. It's a resource. Yeah, exactly.
They should have Charles De La Torre on here also.
No.
Our business is kind of.
So listen, we were chatting a little bit last week. We talked to a few people, and you sent some pictures out of the product you made. And man, I got to tell you, that's some good looking stuff. I wanted to see if Nick could bring up some pictures of that, and you could explain why, how, what you do with it, the reason for it. So if Nick, you're listening back home in the home studio, if you could bring up those pictures that Charles sent over.
That'd be great.
$100 per buyer per seller, so we're not brokering. All right, so this, Charles, maybe you can walk us through a little bit about the product.
I mean, basically, it's an S4S 2x4 no grade stamp premium product, and I mean, this is the same material that we trim to structural studs as well. And we've had a lot of luck with it because not only does it look good, but I mean, it yields pretty well. So that means that overall, structurally, and it's a sound piece of wood.
You're just another good-looking guy.
The other downgrade from other accuracy.
Ryan walked you through.
Tell them. Yeah, we got a new system.
So based on the relationship, I consider ourselves extremely lucky to have it.
And here's just the first thing I recognize when I look at those ends.
How much you guys
like,
buying right now selling trucks?
I think sometimes people give rightly so. There's some people that go out there with a whole tech and just rip through the ends of product, right? You get it. It looks like dog's breath, right? So this is perfect. This looks almost nicer than you get from mills. Like the tolerance on this is pretty amazing, right?
Yeah, I mean, the tolerance is about a 32nd or plus or minus a 32nd of an inch. So, I mean, somebody on a whole tech's not going to be able to hold that.
Yeah, look at that. That's beautiful.
That's what gives us that 100% yield when we send it to any end user, whether it's a job site or a manufacturing plant or what have you.
So one thing I want to talk about, well, first of all, this is Cutting Edge with Charles De La Torre and Ashley. Do I pronounce your last name correctly? Because I hear it on your voice. I want to make sure I don't butcher that.
De La Torre, it works. But you're from the Midwest, so there's a weird accent. It's fine. I won't hold it against you.
I see. I always think we don't have an accent at all. Ours is like pure, like the Queen's English, right? So Charles and I, this is our second show. Charles pretty cool story. I mean, he's built his company up from just wholesaling to now manufacturing, has 3, soon to be 4 production lines, has his own facilities, ships all over, provides multifamily, a lot of great products, in all their different trims, and then the stud trims. So I think it's really cool because Charles has a lot of knowledge of just a lot of stuff going on in the Southeast and the shed market, multifamily market in general. Um, is that a pretty good introduction, Charles, to what we talked about?
I think it's a good broad stroke.
Yeah. So
Indeed.
let's talk about these shed trims and why, right? And why your product is so important, especially now. And we'll talk a little bit about logistics. Everybody has asked me, well, hey, why don't I just buy these in cans from Europe or whatever? And I think you kind of gave me the nugget of gold talking about, well, one of the reasons is because containers cost $20,000 coming over here now, right? Or so
Yeah, and your
nobody's got.
blocking and bracing on 6, 7, 8 foot studs is a lot more expensive than your stock lengths, 10, 12, 14, 16.
Yeah,
Whether
exactly.
you're shipping it in a can or you're shipping break bulk. So it makes it difficult for Europeans to supply some of this stuff. And historically, it's been a good market for them on those shorts.
Here's all I know.
But as of late, there's been a lot of variables that have kind of played into that. One thing that you just mentioned as far as why it's important, why what we do is important, it boils down to the fact that any end user, whether it doesn't matter what we cut, right? A pre-cut floor joist for manufactured housing or modular housing plant to 8, 9 foot, 10 foot stud or a custom cut wall stud. That gives the end user the ability to plug and play. Plug and play in labor markets as they sit today is a huge value add. And then you add the fact that we have, we hold a 30-second plus or minus 7-inch tolerance, and that end user or manufacturing facility gets 100% yield out of anything we ship to them. I mean, it's a win-win for everybody. Yeah, there's a premium to be paid for it, but you make up for it when you start talking about units.
I'm trying to make sure my mic is working correctly here. Charles, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
All right.
The video froze, but
I got you. Is it good now?
no.
Okay. Well, we'll leave it frozen then, as long as you can hear me.
Yeah.
One of the things you and I have talked to together, separately, giving consumers of your product, what's the correct term we decided on? We decided on talking about
Well, I mean, it's understanding total cost, right?
right.
And when you have any buyer, the go-to, no matter what you're selling, whether you're selling widgets, lumber, stretch wrap, plastic bags, boxes. Why do you do it this way? We've always done it this way. This is the way I've inherited it. Right? Well, if you look at it from a production standpoint and the number of units produced or your cost per square foot or things of that nature, when you have the ability to plug and play a finished good, your labor rate and your production rate commingle and they go opposite ways, right? Well, let me do it this way. So they go separate ways. So if you have the ability to plug and play pre-cut structural studs, whether they're custom cut or commodities or whatever, your labor per square foot goes down and your production goes up. Now you have some people on top of that, and I think we've mentioned this, is start looking at substitution as far as species. And substitution as far as species, right now there's some good opportunities in 2-6 studs, right? Southern Alpine versus SPL. 2x4s are kind of running neck and neck, no matter what the species is. But the opportunity really puts somebody in a position to look at a total cost standpoint, look at what their average cost is per square foot, per module, per shed, or per floor, and how do you maximize that? Well, you maximize that by reducing all the other costs because you can take on and control what your throughput is and what your efficiencies are. And the more internal efficiencies that you create, the better off you're going to be.
Right. So it's a lot easier sometimes than moving inventory all over the country, trying to cut it somewhere else, bringing it somewhere, having somebody cut it on a job site, having that foot of waste, all that kind of good stuff. And I think that's one of the things that you do is help create that solution. And you're right. It's sometimes people think they've done it the right way forever. It's not that they're not, but there's some better opportunities. opportunity out there.
No, definitely, because I mean, anybody. Once again, it goes back to production rate.
Yeah.
Everything does in this business.
Let's talk a little bit about a couple of the markets that you live in down there too, and one of them is probably one of the highest producing markets, OSB. That southeast market and that western market got a little bit of activity the last few weeks. Is that fair enough to say that?
That's accurate. There's some mills that are out to November, which is extremely strong. Obviously, Random and every other publication is kind of behind on that. But I mean, if you look at actual lead times, and if anybody needs prompt wood, there's a price to pay for that.
Yeah, and I think one of the interesting things that we heard here today, one of the guys, Tim from John Burns, was talking about a lot of their feedback. There's a lot of non-typical buyers of lumber, people that never bought it before, now filling up reloads with lumber, which is crazy, right? And this is the phantom. He actually coined the term phantom inventory, and there's a lot of that out there. And I think there's we're in one of those things now where I think, is lumber going to be like toilet paper again, where everybody puts it down in their? Well, I'm up in the Midwest, so we put it down in the basement in our. But where everybody kind of pigeonholes some stuff away. And damn, I got to tell you, I called a bunch of reloads the last few weeks to get some clients on, and a bunch of them are just stacked full of wood still, and with non-traditional people. Are you noticing that anywhere or hearing about that?
Well, it's definitely a variable in the marketplace, and I don't think it's a consumption issue. I think it's a transportation issue.
Yeah.
You've got trucking that's at least 10 to 14 days behind. So, I mean, if you talk about a typical 5-day business week, we're talking 2.5 weeks on average.
Right.
So if we were to sell something today or it needed to ship today, a majority of the time right now in the market that we're in, it's not going to ship until the second or third week of October.
So prompt wood now, even trucks on the ground, it can take 2 weeks to get trucks underneath them. We had one on Friday coming from Mississippi, right? Had it booked 3 times. Truck drivers just keep dropping them. You know why they drop them? Because they get a better paying load probably, or for whatever reason it is, right? And
a lot of it has to do with that.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with that. Now that's interesting. Let's flip over to the lumber side. I know we talked last Tuesday about it. Anything change on the pine side? Everything's still kind of status quo, 4-inch good. One of the truss guys today was saying that they have business sold out 9 months on southern pine, on their trusses, right?
Yep.
And they have a problem, not a problem now. They're telling their sales guys to push in the clutch a little bit because their order file's so far out, right?
Well, I mean, when you go that far out, you can run into variables that you can't anticipate.
Yeah.
And that creates a scenario to where even bigger problems can fester. It creates a problem for you and that customer relationship. And I don't know that there's going to be a major, in 9 months, if there's going to be a major variable in the marketplace that you can point and lend a finger to. Or is it still going to be, windows, doors, and bathrooms or bathtubs?
Yeah, what was the one today? One of the inputs to drywall is now impossible to get. I can't even tell you what the name was, but there's all these little things that are these input costs into these items that you can't get, and it's pushing back on the supply chain, right?
Definitely.
So what else do you want to talk about today, Charles?
I mean, I think we pretty much covered it. I mean, I think there's a lot of things that are going on still, and there's an active marketplace, and there's definitely demand that needs to be reached. And to sum it up, I mean, there's a lot of value that my organization or organizations like us can bring to the table that end users, multifamily doesn't matter. They're currently not getting.
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things I know after we've done some of these shows, you can come onto mxlumber.com, register, and we can get you signed up looking at Charles stuff. Charles, you have a bunch of stuff listed today. We want to move your product, help you move your product into areas that you're currently not moving it into, to people you're currently not moving it to. And I think there's a lot of value with what you provide, and just the value of being able to talk to you and what you provide. So that's one of the other benefits of getting on Materials Exchange. You got access to Charles to talk about certain products. That's pretty damn good.
I mean, that's one hand shakes the other. Because, I mean, you create an opportunity and liquidity that we wouldn't have if you weren't around, right? And then the exposure is obviously paid dividends for both. So it's a win-win.
Well, it's cool.
That's how partnerships work.
We were at dinner last night, I mentioned, and or at a cocktail reception. And we've got our guy Ryan here. Ryan's 25, 26. He met some other guys with 25, 26 just in the industry, and they were laughing about how kind of we currently do business. Like, some of these guys' frustration were, I have a hard time talking to some of my buyers and all that because they own these accounts, and for some reason I can't get people on the phone. And we ran by the Materials Exchange thing, and they just stared at us like, we didn't know there was that option. This is great, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool hearing younger people pushing our product and the technology. So hopefully we get some of them out doing it too. Well, cool. I'm sorry for some of the background noise. Like I said, we're literally sitting on the floor here. See, and there's Ryan.
How are you doing, guys?
And we're working on preaching the message here. So we'll do this again next Tuesday at 12. Or next Monday at 12 o'clock Central Time, and hopefully have a little bit better scripted out. But thank you for taking your time today and coming on, Charles.
Hey, no problem, Ash. Y'all have fun. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks.
All right, bye.